Welcome back to another episode of His Haven. In this episode today, I'm going to be getting super raw and real with you about my journey with postpartum anxiety and really just anxiety in general, but more specifically postpartum anxiety. And let's just say this episode that I prepared for this month was going to be just some simple tips with you about supporting your postpartum season. And I wanted to share a little bit of my story with postpartum anxiety, but what ended up happening was me sharing my entire story and honestly my entire 15 years of struggling with anxiety. And it honestly got so raw and deep that I physically felt uncomfortable in my living room, and I was so close, I kid you not, so close to just stopping and deleting the whole thing and not sharing this. But I truly believe that it is something, postpartum anxiety it can feel complicated, it can feel uncomfortable, it can feel so many different emotions. And especially as a Christian, I think there is just a lot of thoughts, a lot of stigmas, a lot of things people can think about and believe about being a Christian and struggling with anxiety. And I'll be honest that I'm still trying to figure that out. And so I'm not on the other end of that, of having all of the answers, and I don't know if I ever will be, but I still wanted to share this with you because I think that someone needs to hear it. I think there's a mom out there, whether she's freshly postpartum or whether she has been a mom for a bit and she is just dealing with anxious thoughts, worry, fear, all of those things. That is what I talk about in this episode today. So I pray that it encourages you. I pray it sheds light on postpartum anxiety, and I pray that you just don't feel alone, because I promise you that you never are. Even when you feel like there's this heaviness, there's this weight, there's this piece of you that you just want to be free from, I just want you to know, if that's you, that you are not alone in that at all. So I pray this episode blesses you, and let's dive into it. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so pumped for today's episode, all about postpartum. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about postpartum, which I feel like many people just don't know that much about, don't really talk about that much. I don't know. There's, at least for me personally, when I did quote unquote prep for our two daughters, I did a lot of prenatal classes or birth classes, and I did a lot of information and research about labor and delivery and stuff like that. But the actual postpartum fourth trimester, I did not do that much research on. And I just think it's so important, because I will just flat out be honest with you and just share that I had a ton of postpartum anxiety with our first, Noah Grace. And she's literally about to be 2, y'all. I cannot believe we are going to have a 2-year-old. She is crazy. She is getting so big, just physically, and also just I don't know, she's saying so many words, we're having conversations with her. It is just wild to see how fast your kid can grow in 2 years. She's not 2 yet, but she'll be 2 in September. And it's just so wild to see. So we have 2 girls, 2 under 2 right now. literally, it is the most insane time of my life. I just feel like a ping pong ball most days where I'm just going back and forth from one kid to the other. Someone's crying or they're both crying, who knows, and they both need something at the same time. It is so wild, and I just feel like I need roller skates on most days. But anyway, all that to say, let's talk about postpartum, because I had a lot of anxiety in my first postpartum experience, and I kind of expected to have maybe something, whether it was depression or anxiety, because I have dealt with both of those, before giving birth, before being pregnant. And so I think I was kind of on the lookout, that this could be a thing. And it's something that my husband and I also talked about before actually getting to that postpartum too, was like, this is something that I might struggle with. So it was a conversation we had, but yeah, it is not something I don't know if I've fully gotten over that. I don't even know if that's like the right way to word that, but I really have struggled with a lot more anxiety since becoming a mom. Really over the past couple years, even before having kids, or the past few years, even before kids, but also just especially after having kids. And it's really hard because anxiety can be, it can be correlated or related to a lot of different things. I don't think it's just emotional. It may be, but I think it can be emotional. It can be physical, like there's something going on in your body hormonal wise or something like that. It can be spiritual, where I do believe that you can be oppressed by spiritual warfare. So there's different aspects of anxiety. I feel like it is complicated, but it's still something that I just want to talk about. I want to share my experience with it a little bit, at least just related to postpartum. And I do just want to share like 5 practical tips with you that I did this postpartum, my most recent postpartum, which I'm now 4 months postpartum. And I just want to share 5 things that I did this time that I feel like really helped my just mental health overall, and just, I don't know, just kind of easing on into that 4th trimester with our second. So I'm going to share those things with you today and a little bit of my experience. So I would say that I've dealt with anxious thoughts, the feeling of anxiety for a long time, probably, I don't know, since I was about 17 or 18 years old. I remember getting on a plane by myself for the very first time, and I had my first panic attack. I had no idea what was happening. I had never experienced that before, and I remember just feeling like I was going to die. I don't really know why. I don't really know what exacerbated that, other than maybe feeling a little claustrophobic, maybe feeling a lack of control. And I straight up went up to the flight attendants. I remember asking them for some type of medication that could calm me down, because I was literally freaking out, and I felt like I was dying. I don't know if I thought I was having a heart attack. I don't know. But I felt like I was dying, and I just remember them being like, yeah, we got Tylenol. I'm like, well, that's not going to do much, but thanks anyway. And so that was my first time experiencing any sort of major anxiety. And I think off and on since then, I'm 29 now, and off and on since then, so for about 12 years, I've had anxiety, or I have dealt with anxiety. I really try to watch how I talk about it, because it is not something I like to take on as my identity. I think we can really do a good job of that. So I don't want to do a good job of that. I want to say that this is something that I deal with, and I don't want to deny that, but I also don't want to take it on as a label of mine, because it is not a label of me. It is not something that God has called me to. It is not something that God wants for me. It is not something that is a fruit of the Spirit. And so with all of that, I just like to be careful on how I talk about it with myself. And so all that being said, I've dealt with it for a while. I have dealt with panic attacks before. I think there is different things in my past that exacerbated those things. For example, drinking a lot of alcohol, which is not something I do anymore. But when I had, a crazy night of tequila shots, like I remember also having a panic attack. And so I think there is different things that I've definitely walked away from at this point in my life where I can say, okay, we can take away that trigger. We can take away that trigger. But there is still these moments of extreme panic that I have. And honestly, it really sucks. And I'm still navigating the whole being a Christian and being a disciple of Jesus and navigating anxiety. I'm still figuring that out. I'm still figuring out what does God say about anxiety? What does this mean for my life? I know his word says do not be anxious, but there are times that I feel like Jesus was anxious in the Bible. And so what does he actually mean when he says, do not be anxious? There's all of these questions. There's all of these thoughts that I've had about anxiety. And it has, I will be honest, crippled me a lot of days where I feel like because of the fear, it can overtake my mind and it can just not allow me to do things that I used to do like 10 years ago, or do things that I would, not be scared of 10 years ago. But now there's this overwhelming amount of fear, this overwhelming amount of anxious thoughts and just worry that just kind of glooms over me. And I promise you, I have prayed and prayed over this. I have had other people pray over me. Feel like I have done all of the things. And I pray that one day I will be completely free of this. Not to say that we won't ever be anxious at all, or I won't ever be anxious at all, but the crippling panic attacks that I have experienced up until this point, like it is not something I want for anybody, like literally anybody. I wish no one would ever have to navigate this. And it is tough. It is tough. And when you add a pregnancy and when you add postpartum into that and you add all of these new things and changes, I feel like it can just exacerbate the anxiety. And so for me, I was also on medication for, I don't know, maybe a couple years or something like that. I don't really know. I was on medication and then I started using oils, started dabbling into the whole holistic, crunchy world. And I actually got off of my medication. And I did okay for a period of time. And then, fast forward to getting pregnant, and I had our baby, and I was 5 days postpartum, and I had to go back into the hospital. And this is a little bit of my postpartum journey that I did not share with you in my most recent birth stories that I shared on the podcast. Man, I just have to take a second because I feel so vulnerable. Like, these are the times when I swear to you, I just want to pause this and then I want to delete everything that I just said and I want to start over because it just feels super vulnerable to share all of this right now. But I'm going to push through that and we're just going to keep going. Okay, this is real life right now. Okay, this is literally how I'm feeling, but I'm just going to push through that. So yeah, in my postpartum journey with Noah, our first, I was 5 days postpartum and I developed postpartum preeclampsia, where your blood pressure can become really high. You're at risk for seizures. You can be at risk for organ damage if it gets to be too far without any interventions. And so I didn't really know how to feel postpartum because I had never had a baby before. I'd never been postpartum before. But I could just tell you those first 5 days, I felt off. I really don't know how else to describe it. Like, I was exhausted, I was sore, I felt weird in my chest. Like, I don't know, just all these different things. But again, I was like, okay, well, I have heart issues, and they talk about, all of these different fluid shifts that happen in your body, postpartum. And so maybe, I tried to like think about a reason for all of the things that I was having, all the symptoms that I was having, but I ended up just taking my blood pressure at home, and it was like 160s over 100. I was like, dang it. So I told Tony, like, hey, we're probably going to have to go to the hospital. I'm probably going to be admitted. This is going to suck. So we got to the hospital, and they took my blood pressure again. It was like 200s over 100. Everyone comes in, they're doing all the things, they're pushing things through my IV. They started me on magnesium, which was the worst experience of my entire life thus far. I would rather have a baby again, completely natural. It was that bad. It made me feel so loopy. It made me feel drunk, but not in a good way. It made me feel anxious. It made me feel hot all over. It was just absolutely terrible. Like, I will do whatever is necessary, of course. If this medication is going to prevent me from having a seizure and prevent, worse things from happening to my body, of course, I want this intervention. But at the time, it was rough. It was so rough. And I was 5 days postpartum, so my milk's coming in, and I'm not even really able to pump because I'm just so out of it. We left our 5-day-old baby at home. It was just a lot at one time. It was a lot, okay? And we left her at home for, I guess, 24 hours. And by the time the medication, got through my system, they were just trying to get my blood pressure under control, because a lot of times when you get the magnesium, your blood pressure can normalize, but mine did not. So mine did lower, but they still wanted to get some medications on board to help me with my blood pressure. So they ended up giving me a medication called nifedipine. It was a pill that they wanted me to start taking. I had the worst side effects from that, but I didn't know it was side effects from that. Again, I just didn't know what to expect postpartum. Is this the symptoms or the side effects that I'm supposed to be feeling from the magnesium? Is this just regular postpartum hot flashes? Like, I have no idea. But when I was taking that medication, I would basically feel hot all over. I would feel lightheaded and dizzy. I'd feel like I was going to pass out. And all of that, I think, made me feel anxious. So it was just like this continuous cycle. Again, didn't know it was a side effect of the medication. So they're just trying to increase my medication doses of this nifedipine because they're trying to get my blood pressure under control. It's just teetering on this line of being normal and not normal. So anyway, eventually, like one night, I was feeling good. I was like, all right, I feel better. Maybe this medication's working, blah, blah, blah. And then I just remember we got Noah back at the hospital, and so she was able to stay with us, but still that was like a lot because I had just gotten off this medication and I'm still like not feeling the best and taking care of this baby. I just was laying there in the bed, and Tony and I were watching football, and I just felt like I was gonna pass out, and I rang the nurse like call bell, and I said, hey, I think I'm gonna pass out like right now. And they're like, okay, we're coming. And they just didn't come for, I don't know, it felt like forever. So I called them again. And they had just given me the medication like 30 minutes prior. So I was like, okay, maybe this medication is working and it's working too much, and my blood pressure is like now too low. So they came in, they took my blood pressure. It's like 160s systolic, like the top number. And I'm like, great. So they roll me to labor and delivery because they started me in labor and delivery on the magnesium and then transferred me to postpartum and then transferred me back now to labor and delivery because over at postpartum, they cannot push IV blood pressure medication because it needs to be continuously monitored, and they don't have the resources or the nurses to be able to do that because the nurses have too many patients and they don't have monitors and stuff over there. So they had to wheel me back to labor and delivery, and I'm just chilling in the PACU area with all the other moms that have just recovered from their C-sections, and Tony's like laying on a stretcher. I'm laying in the bed. My body is like shaking and just feeling weird all over. And my mind is starting to go to worst case scenarios. Like my mind is starting to go to, is something wrong with my heart? Is something wrong with my body that is not getting recognized? Like I was thinking like the worst. I'm like, I'm just gonna die in this bed right now. Like I'm just like, that's how far my mind was going. I did not know like what was happening. And so they got my blood pressure under control with more medication, and then they wheeled me back to postpartum. And at this point I am like, I've gotten no sleep. I'm so exhausted, all of these things. And when we get over to the postpartum unit, we have to sign this paperwork that basically says like they're not responsible if anything happens to Noah, because at that point she's not a patient, like she was already discharged, but she's like still with us. So I had to sign these forms and blah blah blah. This might not seem like a big deal. Even just thinking about it now, I'm like, man, this really didn't seem like a big deal. But again, first time mom try to picture this scenario of just lack of sleep. I'm, being diagnosed with preeclampsia. I'm on medication I've never been on, all these things. And Noah had a like weird smell to her belly button. I didn't really think it was that big of a deal, but I just wanted them to just look at it since we were there at the hospital. I was like, maybe the pediatrician here can just look at it. Well, the nurse comes in and she goes, oh, like that's really not good. That could be really bad. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't know for sure, but you might want to have your husband take her down to the ER and get checked in and be evaluated. And I kid you not, I just this rush, I looked straight at this nurse and I said, okay, you're going to need to give me a dose of Ativan now because I'm about to go into a panic attack, because the overwhelming feeling that my newborn 5-day-old baby that just came back to me is going to have to be separated from me again to go to the ER, which is emergency. You go to the ER for emergencies, right? And my husband's going to have to leave me to go with our baby to go get checked out in the emergency room. At the time, saying it doesn't really sound like that big of a deal, but at the time, oh my gosh, that sent me over the edge. And I remember a doctor coming in and I told them like, I need something for my anxiety right now. Like I am having a panic attack. And I didn't know what to do because a panic attack for me, like I need to get away. I need to get out. I need to feel like I can breathe. I need some air. And I just kind of was stuck in that hospital room. And that was not okay for me. And the doctor comes in and just starts talking to me and says, hey, what's going on? I'm like, I think I'm having a panic attack. Like I have had these before. I was on anxiety medication. And he was like, all right, well, we can start you back on that. And I think I felt like, man, this sucks. I didn't really want to be on medication again. I am not against medication at all. To an extent, I think there's a time and place for medication, of course, but I'm also about getting to the root of what is really going on. And I'm also about using other tools before medication. But that at that point in time, I was like, I need something right now. And so they started me on Lexapro. And so I have been on that since that incident, and Noah is almost 2 years old, and they gave me something else during that time. I think it was like hydroxyzine or whatever. It really just made me kind of drowsy. Didn't really help too much with the anxiety, but yeah, that was a little bit of just my 5-day postpartum anxiety, and it didn't really go away after that. I came home and it was still, just worry after worry and just feeling this overwhelming amount of anxiety. And I think some of that was related to my medication, and it just made me feel weird in my body. And I think because I was feeling weird in my body, I think my brain said, oh, something is wrong, and then I would feel anxious because I'd never been on blood pressure medication before. I had never been on something like that. And so there was just a lot of changes, a lot of things at one time. And I didn't even honestly expect to share that whole story with you, but that's just all to say, like, if that is something that you are walking through right now, if that is something that you have walked through, like, I pray that you don't feel any shame for the anxious thoughts and feelings that you are navigating, whether that's in the past or whether that's right now, that it is something that is so common. I don't want to say like it's normal. I don't know if that's like the right word to say, but so many moms are walking through it. And I even remember a time just feeling so alone because even my really good friends, like I talked to them about it and I tried to explain to them as best as I could the severity of the anxiety that I was feeling. And I really felt misunderstood, like they just didn't get it. And it's okay. Like not everyone is going to understand. Not everyone is going to get it. I mean, they heard me and listened to me and like loved me, I think as best as they could. But I also kind of felt like they just didn't get it. I think if you only really can fully understand if you have walked through that yourself or have maybe directly walked alongside of someone that has navigated that. And so, yeah, I even remember feeling so alone because I'm like, am I going crazy? No one understands this. I'm the only one going through this. I'm the only one navigating this. And I didn't really want to tell anybody, even telling people, I felt just like they're going to think I'm crazy. And I felt shame and I felt, just all of these different things that it was hard enough to even be vulnerable sharing, but then to feel like, does anyone understand me? You know what I mean? And so that's all to say, like, if that has been a little bit of your journey too, like you are not alone. I promise you, you are not alone. There are so many moms navigating things with anxiety and things with depression and just postpartum issues in their journey as a new mom and when I say new mom, either first time mom or a mom again in their postpartum journey, because every postpartum journey that you walk through is going to be so different. None of them are going to be the same. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of my journey. And like I said, I'm sharing this with you, being still in the middle of this, being still something that I'm navigating and trying to figure out. And, by the grace of God, I'm praying that one day on this earth side, I will be completely free from that. I will feel so free because I can tell you that there is this weight to it. There is this heaviness to it that I can feel and that I just want to be completely free from. And so I pray that over myself and I pray that for you, that it wouldn't be this, oh, when we get to heaven, it'll be gone and everything will be good. And no, like I want to experience that goodness here. So I pray that over you. I pray that for you, that you would experience the complete freedom that Jesus died on the cross for us for. So he died so that we could be free from this anxiety. And like I said, I just want that for you, for me. And if you are struggling with that, if you know someone that is struggling with that, just remember you are not alone. You're not in this by yourself. Please talk to someone. Please reach out to someone close to you that you trust, that, makes you feel safe, and just know that you're not walking through it alone. So thank you so much for tuning in to the episode today. I pray that it blesses you. If you felt like it spoke to you and you want to share it with a friend, I pray that you would encourage them as well with this episode. And I will see you next month for 5 tips to help you in your postpartum season. Okay, have a great day, friend. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into His Haven podcast. I hope you walk away from it feeling seen and hopeful that God has so much more for you and you're not alone in your struggles. If you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend who you think it could speak to. And if you want to connect more, you can find me on Instagram at Kayla.alimo. See you next time, friend.